Okay, this might sound kind of stupid, but what language are the characters in the Avatar universe speaking? Not the blue people one, we already know a lot about that. I'm talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender. The creators of the show have said that the main four cultures, water, fire, earth, and air, are derived from Inuit, Chinese, Japanese, and Tibetan cultures for the most part. But everybody in the world appears to speak the same language and read a script that at least looks like the Chinese logography. So I have some observations that led me to some questions and an idea. Hey everybody, welcome to Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of my favorite shows of all time. I know, I'm so quirky and original. Nobody's ever had that opinion before. I remember when I was first watching it, I noticed a couple things about the use of language in the story. First, there were the waterbending scrolls, which were written using Chinese characters. And then later on during the Serpent's Pass episode, there was a scene where Sokka reads a sign that says, "Abandon hope," with characters also written in Chinese. I actually asked a couple people in Big Lang who know Chinese if those actually were Chinese text, and yeah, it actually was Chinese text. So there is that. But that doesn't answer the question, okay? I'm not just gonna say, okay, yeah, I guess they're just speaking Chinese. No. It's not that simple, okay? Nowadays, I know how the phonology of Mandarin Chinese works, but even back when I was a little kid, I had a twinge of doubt in my head when I heard that the formal duel in the Fire Nation is called an Agni Kai. Right? Sure, Kai could be a Japanese or a Chinese word, but Agni? I'm sure most of my viewers are already into linguistics, but just in case the algorithm catches some people who are new to this, Agni contains a consonant cluster that isn't permitted in Mandarin or Chinese, that being the Gna cluster. And, oh yeah, Agni is also the Sanskrit word for fire. In fact, that's like the name of a Hindu god of fire. So I guess thematically it kind of fits in. And I guess, you know, Sanskrit was spoken in India, which is just also generally Asia, right? Okay. So I guess if you assume that the Fire Nation is actually a combination of like Japan and India, maybe it works? Maybe? I don't know, but this casual discrepancy, just to include a word that etymologically means fire in a world where everything else seems pretty much random, really got me thinking. What language do the people in this world actually speak? There are literally no stakes to this, and believe me, the end result is terrifying. I just thought this would be funny, okay? This is all funny. I love the show. I'm cracking jokes because I really wish that the show actually had a real conlang. Since it doesn't, plot twist, I'm taking matters into my own hands. So, buckle up. Part 1, all of the non-English words in Avatar. So, to get started on this, I figured it would be helpful to put together a little corpus of all of the non-English words that are used in Avatar. Some of the most obvious examples include Agni Kai, right, the fire duel, Tui and La, the ocean and moon spirits, Ko, the face stealer, Ba Sing Se, the impenetrable city, which they definitely don't call Na Sing Se, which means penetrable city. That becomes important later, hold on to that. But there are also naming conventions to consider, especially when looking at the phonologies of native names in the four nations. So, if we look at the entire series, we can make 4 lists of names, words, and phrases associated with each culture. I read the script for literally the entire series to put together a decently comprehensive list. I used the transcripts available on the Avatar fandom wiki. I'm sorry. It was just really convenient. So, a few names of locations and people that are never spoken out loud but are somehow known by the fandom might have trickled into this list too, since I couldn't tell if I missed something or if those extra names were just kind of added in and this was time-consuming enough of an endeavor that I didn't really bother to do a second comb through of the entire series to check. So I think I got all of it. Not too much, not too little, I think. So, deal with that, okay? Also, I'm not doing this for Korra or the comics. This is already taking way longer than I thought it was going to take. First, for the Water Tribe, which the creators of the show have been quoted as having taken extreme inspiration from various Inuit and Yupik cultures. We have this whole list here, most of them names, Saka, Katara, Hakoda, Bato, stuff like that. Then we have the Earth Kingdom, which is inspired by the cultures of China and just the Sinosphere in general. And we have this big old list, mostly of names, but a lot of locations, things like that. Then there's the Fire Nation, which is supposedly based on Japanese culture, Chinese culture, and various other East and Southeast Asian elements. So, got that list right there. And finally, the smallest list, the air nomads, who are supposed to have similar traits to, say, Tibetan culture, right? Not too much on that front, for obvious reasons, lore-wise. These weren't perfect characterizations. We can't really confirm the birthplace of every minor character that appears on screen, and several characters straddle the lines between the nations. Also, it became pretty clear to me that, other than tending to have names with an average of, say, 1.5 syllables, there really was no major correlation between the names of the spirits. So instead of having them in their own category, I just kind of put them in the regions which they were accessed or communicated with the most frequently in the series. So, once I had that, I then went about creating phoneme tables for each of the foreign nations' supposed languages. There were a few names that were debatably either just English words or in-world words, so I opted to just phonemically convert all of them to yield a consistent result. With all that out of the way, here are the phonologies of the foreign nations. Plot twist, they all pretty much match with English. The show is in English, though of course, as we know, as researchers here, that's obviously just a dub from this creation, this language that was definitely made for the show, right? Anyway, the show is in English from our perspective. Most of the voice actors speak English as their first language, so it isn't too surprising that the phonologies overall overlap with things compatible with English. So, here's the Water Tribe phonology. Unsurprisingly, all of these sounds are compatible with English, all of them. How does this compare to the phonology of the languages of the creator's stated influences? Well, okay, so for, say, North Slope Inupiaq's consonants, we have an 8 out of 26 match. Not great. For Inuktitut, we have a 9 out of 17 match. That's a little bit above 50%, right? That's pretty decent. And don't get me started on Central Alaskan Yupik though, where we're sitting at a whopping 8 out of 32, or a 25% match. So, at best, the consonant phonemes of Inuktitut are the closest to matching what the Water Tribe has presented to us. From a cursory glance, Inuktitut phonotactics are a slightly closer match as well, and aesthetically, the use of doubled letters, which I'm generously assuming the Water Tribe used to denote geminated consonants, even though that's definitely not how it works considering the names we hear in the show, like how they actually sound. But still, it's at least a decent shout out to how Inuktitut text looks when you're reading it. Now, we have no grammar to compare from the Water Tribe, so we can't really go much further than that. Now, the Earth Kingdom's phonology, right? Let's look at that real quick. Now, let's compare this to Mandarin Chinese's phonemes. Okay? So, for the consonants, it's not terrible. If you tried speaking Chinese with an English phonology, it would come out pretty similar, right? The vowels are also a, decent match, except of course for the complete lack of tones. Again though, if you spoke Chinese with an English speaker's phonology and the tones vanish, I guess the result would actually not be too far off. The spelling and the orthography gets extremely inconsistent for vowels though, right? Both A-O and O-W for the ow diphthong, right? Great. Okay. Guess we're just kind of having fun there. Now, the Fire Nation phonology. Now, let's try matching this, what I found here, the Fire Nation's phonology, with, say, Japanese. This one can also be stretched a little bit. I couldn't even give it like a percent match score though, because so many of Japanese's sounds have places or manners of articulation just slightly off from English's. I could almost give it a pass, except for the Fire Nation's clear ra versus la distinction. That's a little egregious if you're trying to be Japanese. The vowels are okay, even though the spelling, especially for gets a little crazy if you follow how they're spelled in the script for the show. In the Air Nomads, we didn't have too much to go off of for the Air Nomads, presumably mostly because they were too dead to see more of their speakers on screen. But let's compare the consonants of Tibetan, just because that's the most obvious comparison. If we stretch it, we can get the match rate to around 8 out of 29. 6 out of 29 if I'm being less generous. I really can't say too much about this since we're lacking a sufficient amount of information. However, with all this in mind, there's one glaring issue with trying to come up with 4 languages. Everyone in the world can understand each other perfectly fine. It's all actually just one language. No character ever has a language barrier with another one in this show, ever. Some characters are shown to have accents, but this is most likely just to add vibes to specific characters. Like, there's no actual reason Iroh speaks the way he does, while Zuko just sounds like an edgy American teen, other than because Iroh is supposed to be the wise old man, you know? The people in the swamp have southern US accents, probably just because they live in a swamp. So at the end of the day, comparing the names and scant phrases from the show to real-world languages that match the creator's cultural inspirations is kind of useless at the end. Obviously, everybody in this world, even the spirits, speak the same language. I'll assume some spirit shenanigans caused this, or maybe the fact that a bunch of people have powers that can allow them to travel vast distances quickly has like prevented linguistic divergence beyond that of just dialects. Let's just kind of throw that aside for now. How about, instead of having 4 separate phonologies, let's put them all together, not removing any, but widening the phoneme pool as much as possible to create one single list for the language that everyone in this world speaks. The universal elemental consonants are m, n, ng, p, b, t, d, k, g, f, t, s, z, ch, j, sh, h, r, l, y, w. And the vowels are e, u, e, o, debatably a, ah. Alright, it's time to generate our word list for the Avatar elemental language. Let's see what we got here. We're gonna go on over to nga.org, and we're gonna go on to the nga.org word generator, which exists if you didn't know it exists. And we're gonna go on down to the word generator, and we're gonna start inserting our consonants and vowels. And I'm doing this, well, actually, I don't know. It's so inconsistent the way the orthography is. It's like, just wait till we get to like the letter K. It's like so inconsistent. I really don't know what to do about that. So let's keep it with phoneme symbols for now. Jang, Jin, Tsungi, Tyro, Banzu, Unagi, Kiyoshi. I think that might be it. Those are the only ones that can... Yeah, look, Mong, K. All the silent H's that are just floating around in here. Maybe to match with the aesthetic, instead of the long vowels being represented with doubled letters, I should just have the H's be in there. I feel like that honestly makes more sense. Or is it literally just the nasals and then sa and ga? I think it is. I think it is. And then there's one like weird example of one of the names of the air nomads, which is like Eo. I guess in that sense I can't do the H thing. Well, I can. I could just have them mean the same thing. I guess. I could just have those in there as well, right? And just imply that maybe something is hypothetically different about it. Oh, it's gyatso, isn't it? I did all of that for gyatso. Okay, I'm just gonna consider that 2 syllables because that's how I say it anyway. Instead of gyatso, I'm just gonna call it gyatso, and we're just gonna call that 2 different syllables. And look at that, literally just halved the total possible syllables, just like that. And then I'm going to change NC to just T, and that reduces it down to a much more stable 3,168. So let's see what our actual possible words are. Buying, bice, bow, baug, baum, bound, baung. Okay. Lung, lua, luas, moi, mog, moim, muis, lung. Okay, this is more like what I was looking for. This is a lot better. And again, even that is technically, you know, more than what the actual word count is, because I've considered these long vowels in quotation marks to just be you know, the same thing, whether it's an IH, UH, EH, OH, AH, or like the doubled letters, which means I have a much more narrow and usable pool of words to choose from. I'm actually kind of satisfied with this. Okay, now comes the fun part. Now we're gonna slap those base roots into here as the elemental roots in the dictionary. We're going to then give them each an ID number. Then instead of what I usually do on my dictionary documents, where I have like a spot for, you know, whether it's a noun, a verb, etc., 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 on this one I'm just going to give each one a part of speech marker and a meaning, because there's so many words that could have like identical sounds, and I'll just give them like one of the multiple different alternative spellings if it's applicable. If not, then whatever, I don't care. This we're just gonna get done pretty quickly. And now, since I created just the syllabic things, that means that I'm going to use exclusively, well, not maybe exclusively, I'm going to draw from existing names and things, and I'm going to make those root words pop out of the various syllables that are used in people's names. So like in the name like Sokka, you know, he's like a water tribe guy with a boomerang or something, so maybe like Sok will be something water related, and Ka will be like warrior or something like that. So I'm gonna try and just pull as many of those out as I can from the source material, phonetically or phonologically, depending on what I could do. So we're gonna see how that goes. Slap them on in here, boom, just like that. Slap it in there. I never make dictionaries without ID numbers in the words anymore. I'm not making the Cerncahelan mistake again. All right, so we got those, and now what we got to do is we could start grabbing some meanings and things. So in this case, there's a lot of things to choose from, and now let's go to the list of of names here. And now not all of them do I remember like all the context for, but like say for like Zuko, right? He must be one of the first names, yeah. The first name in the Fire Nation list, Zuko. And so there's definitely gonna be a Zoo in here. There's Zoo, it's number 3,127. And now let's say Zuko, right? Let's call Zoo Fire and Ko Prince. So he's the Fire Prince. Right? Okay, so in this case it could be a noun or an adjective, and we're just gonna call it Fire. And now keep in mind, Agni is Agni is also gonna have to be in fire, and that means that both of the components of Agni are gonna also have to be something related that could be put together and turn into something related to fire. So that's gonna be rather entertaining. Okay, so let's go and find Ko, and that means that Ko the face stealer, actually he's a lengthened vowel, and we could just call that face stealer right there for Ko, but just Ko in Zuko, that's a noun, and that's gonna be prince. So Zuko is the fire prince. Let's say Iroh, right? His sound there is I, Let's go back up to the very first instance of I. It's gonna be like all the way up at the top, right? I. There you go. Let's say I. Let's say Iroh is like the wise old man. So let's say that I. I means wise, and then Roh, like R-O-H. Roh. We're just gonna call Roh old man. Yeah, there you go. Roh is the old man. Sozin. Let's say since he's related to the comet, right? The comet lord. Yeah, let's call him the comet lord. Then Ozai, of course, is the Phoenix King. So, the orthography. The orthography of the elemental language is pretty clearly the Chinese logography. Well, my one semester of Mandarin 5 years ago wasn't good enough for me to be absolutely sure the symbols used in the show weren't just random gibberish that looked like Chinese, so I did show a couple Big Lang members the text from the Serpent's Pass sign in the episode The Serpent's Pass. And as Kat Misberg told me, it indeed essentially meant Serpent's Pass. So, just like that, the symbols shown in the intro sequences, water, earth, fire, and air bit, apparently mean benevolent water, strong earth, fierce fire, and harmonious air. Good enough for me. The elemental language uses the Chinese script as its orthography. That being said, with the various grammatical elements we're going to be including, and just for the sake of showing how kinda wonky the overall language is, we're not gonna have it be an exact match. You'll see what I mean. Alright, now before I get too carried away with this, I also need to get my Chinese characters for all these things. Ones for this. So let's see if I could just go to an English-Chinese dictionary. Alright, let's see. Enter pinyin, Hanser English, okay? And let's just type in, say, king. And it looks like, oh, look at that, king. General, commander-in-chief, king of it. Oh, it's just a chess piece. Okay, so Wang, right, is the side for king. Of course, now it's Zai. Nothing to do about that. Right? And then we're just gonna put Zai in there. And that is our word for king. Of course, Zhao is fire. Not anymore, he's not. I'm gonna make Zhao like pride or something like that. Destroy by fire and blaze. Okay, so there's multiple other ones that I can use in this situation. Okay, we're just gonna use the traditional fire character here. Face stealer. So for this one, for something that's just a meme like this, or it's just face stealer, let's say, honestly, I like that a little bit. I know that this is gonna make, like, Chinese speakers lose their mind, but that's kinda part of this. And yes, this is going to thoroughly butcher, like, what the actual Chinese characters mean, probably, but I'm gonna try and keep it, like, relatively accurate where it's easy, and then just kind of flub it where it's less easy. So, because I need singular characters for each of these meanings, just to like get these syllables split up, so it's not going to be perfect. I'll have them mean the correct thing where it is convenient for them to mean the correct thing, and then I'll have it be something close to the correct thing for everything else. So we're going to see what we can do about that. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert a lot of these syllables into actually like accurate words, if I can. We'll see what I could do, but this is essentially how it's about to go. Let's get on to the grammar. This is where things get way more difficult. We do not have much evidence of what the grammar is like at all, being that we only have a scant few phrases that made it through the let's say the English dub of what was certainly originally elemental dialogue. We can pretty safely assume that adjectives precede nouns. Well, at the very least, I'm going to believe that in the phrase Agni Kai, which means fire duel, that the word Agni means fire or fiery or flaming or something like that, considering that's what it means in Sanskrit in real life. I could also troll and just say that Kai means fire and that Agni was a bit of a coincidence. For reasons that you'll see in a second, I actually ended up making Ag and Ni be related to flames and burning. You'll see. Anyway, I also believe that adverbs precede adjectives, given the famous Ba Sing Se, impenetrable city, and Na Sing Se, penetrable city. From this, I can assume that ba means not or un, and na means like yes or indeed. So after that, we don't really know much else about the grammar of the language at all. What's the word order? Does it have inflections or grammatical gender? Like, we have no idea. Since the show we watch in English is, obviously just a sloppy dub, perhaps there are some other clues as to how the grammar works that can be found in the way phrases are translated into English. So when Aang says, "Flameo Hotman," this obviously alludes to a vocative case in the language, where adding an O to the end of a word turns the root into an interjection of sorts. A disjunct or a vocative, something like that. In this case, in the form of a greeting. Perhaps if there are no other examples of inflection, this could instead be a vocative or disjunct particle. Oh, most animals are hybrids of two different species, paired together in the English dub script with hyphens, pairing two real animal names together to craft an explanation in English for what these creatures are. But then, when they go to Ba Sing Se and they meet the Earth King, they're confused when the animal they're meeting is simply referred to as a bear, to which Aang confusedly says, "Just bear." But were those ellipses, or was that just a lengthy hyphen? Perhaps this has been lost in the Ba Sing Se dialect of Elemental, but it seems that every noun needs to come as a pair of descriptors, and only when there's only one thing to describe, a placeholder descriptor, meaning just, could be used, or particles to describe what case or what part of speech in the sentence they're occupying, so that everything has a pair with it at least. Also, in Sozin's Comet Part 1, Sokka refers to the airship slice and dice plan. Wow, this dub is just so sloppy. They couldn't even find a way to cover up the fact that non-finite verbs are frequently sorted into the same syntactical category as adjectives and need to be succeeded with a noun in order to be grammatical. And I don't think I could stretch this anymore. For the rest of this, I'm probably just gonna have to draw on the inspiration languages for some grammatical features. To keep this simple, I wanted to see if there were any general grammatical features that Mandarin, Chinese, Japanese, Inuktitut, and Tibetan all share. And I'm not an expert with any of these languages, and also I'm not trying too hard because this is meant to be a shitpost, so forgive me if my rudimentary research betrays me. As far as I can tell, none of the four languages have grammatical gender, so we can cross that off the list. Topics are brought to the front of a clause or a macro word in all of these languages in at least some circumstances, so I think it's safe to assume that Elemental has topic markers and fronts new topics and clauses. Inuktitut, Japanese, and Tibetan are generally verb final in clauses, so I'll stick with that, though of course Inuktitut's a strange situation, because it's polysynthetic. Conjugation and inflection patterns are just all over the place between these languages, but given the way noun phrases are paired together and non-finite verbs are lumped in with adjectives in a sentence tree, I think I'm going to take a route that follows something more akin to the Inuktitut path, of having relatively regular verb conjugations showing both the subject and object's person, number, and syntactic position. As for tense, I'm going to stick more to a Chinese style of doing things, with even more particles added to the ends of verb phrases. Tibetan and Inuktitut have ergative tendencies, so I think I'll have particles to express those constraints as well. Everything else is just kind of mashed together tidbits of Mandarin, Japanese, Inuktitut, and a tiny bit of Tibetan, and also just kind of filling in the gaps with whatever so I could finish this, because this is taking way too long. So let me know if you see any elements of grammar from any of those languages as they pop up in the translation texts. I could go on for a long time with this, but this was originally supposed to be just like a quick video, but it turned into a really horrid mess, so I think I'm just gonna go for it. Is that realistic? Don't Don't ask me that question today, okay? Okay, so I have my first ever sentence in the elemental language. So I put together just some rudimentary tables. The verb conjugations are inspired vaguely by Inuktitut. The topic markers are inspired vaguely by Japanese and Tibetan. The tense words are inspired vaguely by Chinese, but also the specific sounds that I chose for each one of them is just meant to be like sort of similar to English, I guess, with like done as like don, like dong, it's like doing, you know, stuff like that. Anyway, first sentence we have here, again with the topic marking and all that, we have Sokka killed a man, but it's more literally, as for Sokka, he killed a man. And that comes out to the pronunciation of Saka daan ro ia fig fug don, which is written with these Chinese characters, which, again, the way I was doing it, some of them are like pretty close to like the actual meanings of the Chinese characters, and other ones are like just somewhat somehow related. It gets a lot more vague for like the particles and stuff. So I'm very interested to see like if I took this block of text and put it into just like Google Translate. let's see what that comes out to. Let's see what happens when I put that in. The bullet soldier wants to kill him with an old thing. Dear God. Chinese speakers, tell me how accurate that is. This is the kind of stuff that the rest of this is gonna be. So now I gotta start working on like translating like the Avatar intro and stuff like that, and I'm very interested to see what this comes out to. Let's get some classic bits from Avatar translated here. Obviously, utilizing any of the rare examples of in-world words that made it through the English dub, if they happen to come up. Utilizing some rudimentary and most definitely botched composite grammar that I cobbled together to create some least common denominators of features amongst these four languages, or arbitrarily choosing to focus on one language's trait over another. The end result came out pretty legendary, let's just say that, in my opinion. By legendary I mean it's really bad. Like this is not good. It's not a good conlang. Okay? Mostly by design, right? I guess I'm making a point here about them not making a conlang for the show in the first place, I guess. Anyway, enjoy.
Rugta, Tafbu, Agsu, Angi, Ranham ahadis hu ang tikfuegwen, Pu shawi he figdon zuhai jun figdon. Bas shao avatar we avatar apoi fig fueg daiwen. Avatar dis wan go ding hian figdon. Wan pao I mak fuegdon. Avatar dis shu ganashu ashir shweg fugdon. Gweling sung ang yunadu. Angisha mo ishunadu. Kupoi nama anasui ya fig fugbanwing. Me shuda angjang ma pui gao shug fugdu. Okay, that one was obvious. How about I get you with another classic? Okay, here we go. Long lao quan quig ping dis la fig ming jo fig fueg du ma ga fi yang sho fig fueg du so quig sang I pag fuig fug dong nan sure ras mong fueg don me pafina du chong song Chong song nan. Okay, my sincerest apologies. Here's one more. Shuang oka yue yar fig fug don. Sure dis hana do ro. Okay, I'm done now.
Alright, Thank you so much to all of the patrons and YouTube members who support our mighty mission, especially during this particularly trying time in my life where I'm still working on recovering my life and creating a new daily routine after returning to the United States from Spain. And I mean, like, what a time it's been to voluntarily return to the United States, am I right? So anyway, to Martinawa, Commodore 64, and Volti-Idea and Upload, thanks so much for joining while I've been so busy. Patrons get to see my comic early, they get access to the Minecraft server and the secret Discord chat, they can be judges in the Cursed Conlang Circus if they want to, and they can provide memes for this green screen right here. Anyway, speaking of the Cursed Conlang Circus, the CCC4 is in full swing. I'm starting to see some amazing looking submissions fill in my algorithm. Again, I'm trying my best not to like watch all of them, but I'm still like kind of clicking on them, giving them a like to support the algorithm, maybe a comment or something like that. But I'm trying to keep myself from being spoiled on them, but I'm seeing them come in and it's always super fun. I'm super excited to see how this circus turns out. If you happen to miss the announcement video, I'll put a link to it in the cards because October 10th is the deadline, right? October 10th, remember that. I believe in you. Anyway, thanks for sticking with me while I'm super busy in real life. Lots of stuff is in the works behind the scenes, but the absolute just power creep of my video ideas has led to everything taking a long time to finish. And also, I'm busy. Expect some quicker fun videos in the near future so I can kind of recover my sanity along with those expected grand projects as I finish them. That's all. Nga is out. I'll see you next time.